World history in California is mandated by the state. It's divided into 3 sections by grade. In elementary school, you go from prehistory to the Roman Empire. 7th graders continue on with the medieval world to the dawn of the French Revolution. And then it continues on into 9th grade with a good overview of the social, political, and economic history of the world from the French Revolution until today. That's what we'll be handling in this class. So let's take a look at what we're going to be covering. You'll be comparing and contrasting the glorious revolution of England, the American Revolution, and the French Revolution on their enduring efforts worldwide on the political expectations for self-government and individual liberty. In the second unit, you're going to be analyzing the effects of the Industrial Revolution in Britain, France, Germany, Japan, and the United States. For the third unit, you'll be analyzing the patterns of global change in the era of what was called the New Imperialism. We move on to analyze the causes and course of the First World War. We'll analyze the effects of the First World War, and then analyze the rise of totalitarian governments after the First World War. We'll be analyzing the causes and consequences of World War II and the international development of the post-World War II world. We'll be looking at instances of nation building in the contemporary world and analyzing the integration of countries into the world economy, the information, technological, and communication revolutions. Your grade in this class will be determined by the traditional methods of assessment. It will include the following. There'll be formal textbook reading assignments that you'll use as the foundation of your study. They average around 3 to 5 pages a few times a week. There will also be supplementary materials, primary sources, and so forth, in order to add to what the textbook may not have. I'm a bit of an old-fashioned teacher in that I believe an old formal lecture still has to be improved on to share a lot of good historical information. My talks are accompanied by PowerPoints, something that's going on right now. Formal notes based on a modified version of Cornell notes are mandatory for the class, and I'll teach you how to do that a little bit later. The formal lectures and presentations are usually accompanied by individual and group practices. Now, I know it's a little more difficult to do a group activity while it's virtual, but it is possible for students to work together online at off-school times. One of the best ways to learn something is by teaching it. So we will probably have some group presentations that will consist of work such as videos, PowerPoint presentations, lesson creation reports, and more. Video documentaries and film excerpts will be shown periodically to deepen your understanding of the topics we'll be working on. Most of these are available online for viewing a few times if you wish. Finally, we learn through discussion. I expect some mastery of the material we have before discussion. My interest is not having you simply to regurgitate the material that you've learned, but to use it, applying it to the world today, making the connection between the past and the present. I will challenge your basic assumptions about everything as you attempt to break down my arguments through logic and critical thinking. And don't worry if you don't have the right stuff to discuss intellectually at the beginning. It's part of my job to train you. Most normal days, I will start each class with a quick summary of the day's news, as most of you probably aren't paying too much attention to what's going on outside of the Whitney bubble, or maybe you're only getting some of the news. A few moments will be spent for any questions you might have about any of the topics out there. Your grade in this class will be determined by the traditional methods of assessment, and it will include the following. Tests are about 35% of your grade. They'll be based on all in-class work and readings based on number of text chapters, the activities that we do, discussions that we do, and so on and so forth. You can count right now, while we're in the virtual world, on multiple choice questions and some short writing. If and when we return, the choices for testing will be expanded. There'll be some written homework. You might get worksheets based on chapters and sections. When available, you can just download them from my website and write directly on the material. Participation is about 5% of your grade. I keep a record of when you actively participate in a discussion or review and say something of relevance. So points are earned not for what you say, but how you say it. It is possible to engage in discussion in class, but because you prattled on about something of little importance or concern, you might end up with a very low participation score, as opposed to someone who doesn't say much, but in terms of quality, speaks with a golden tongue. General activities, usually in-class worksheet practice, is about 10% of the final grade. Really, for activities and projects that you do work together on or individually, there should be no problem with anyone getting an A on these things, as long as you follow the general guidelines that I'll be sharing with you. The lecture notes for my presentations are about 10% of your grade. As I mentioned before, you are expected to use a modified version of Cornell notes, which I'll teach you how to do before we start. This is another grade where it's very easy to get an A on, because you are allowed and in fact encouraged to work together and share your material. My presentations will be pre-recorded, so you can watch as many times as you wish. But when you do take notes, you are not permitted to just jot them down verbatim. You must put down the notes in your own words. You'll see how it's done when I show you how to do Cornell notes. Quarter comps will be about 20% of your grade, made up of the material that you had for the quarter. Each individual comp is then worth 10% of your grade. You can go down a letter grade if you get a 0 on your comp, but it probably won't raise your grade by too much if you are doing it at the same level of work you normally do. So don't get your hopes too much on pushing up your grade on a single comp. I used the traditional A to F scale, as you can see here. I round up or down depending upon where the grade lands. I'll do my best to stay up to date on ABI. If there is any errors or suspected errors in your grade, please let me know within a week or two after the grade is published. The further it is in the calendar, the less likely I can find the mistake. Skip. Most of you probably are familiar with the Remind email service, and I've been using Remind for many, many years in order to communicate with students about due dates, changes in class activities, even if I'm going to be out for the day unexpectedly. So I will be giving you information on how to sign up to the classes Remind. Well, that's it. Here's hoping for a great semester virtually. I hope that we can all meet together as a class, but we'll deal with it and go one day at a time. So thank you for your attention.